If you're doing any of the 6 things I'm going to go over in this video, you have let weakness creep into your marriage as a husband. And weakness is not something you can just sweep under the rug. It doesn't go away on its own. If you don't fix these fast, chances are you're headed for some bitter awakenings. Your wife may not come out and say it to your face. In fact, she probably won't, but she will lose respect for you. And when respect dies, attraction dies with it. You could be the best provider. You could love her with everything you've got. But if you're acting weak in these ways, the relationship is going to erode until one day you wake up wondering how the hell you got here. I'm telling you this because I've seen it happen over and over again, and I don't want it to happen to you. If you're new here, my name is Dr. John DeBach. I teach men how to have the relationships they actually want instead of the ones they have to settle for. I'm not selling anything in this video. This really just is my way of giving back to the community with good information. And in case you want to know a little bit about me, I've been a couples counselor and relationship coach for nearly a decade and a half. I've built a social media following from 0 to over 1 million in just the last year alone without spending $1 on ads. I've been on national TV. I'm a published author, and I've worked with literally thousands of men on their marriages. But more valuable than my PhD or any therapeutic modality is that I walk the walk. I've been married for 15 years, and my wife and I have 4 beautiful children. I know there are a lot of people online talking about relationships, but in my experience, if they don't live it, the information is usually just theoretical. So look out for that as you browse YouTube or wherever you like to look for information. Now let's dive into the first way men act weak in their marriages, letting work or kids be an excuse. Now this one is insidious because it doesn't look like weakness on the surface. It looks like you're being responsible. It looks like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, doing what needs to be done. And in many ways, you are. But when work or kids become the shield you hide behind to avoid intimacy, connection, and real partnership, it turns it into weakness. Why? Because it's the easy way out. It takes no courage to say I'm too tired. It takes no courage to say I've got so much going on at work. It takes absolutely no courage to claim that the kids need all your energy. What takes courage is showing up for your wife when you're exhausted. What takes courage is carving out time for your relationship, even when every fiber of you wants to collapse on the couch. Your wife doesn't just need you to provide financially, she needs you to provide emotionally. And when you use work or kids as the constant excuse, what she hears is, you don't matter. Now, she might not say it that way, but that's how it lands. Over time, she stops expecting you to show up. She stops turning toward you. She looks elsewhere for emotional connection, maybe even for appreciation. And you're left wondering why she seems distant. This doesn't mean you neglect work or kids. Of course not. You can't do that. But it means you prioritize your marriage alongside those things. Weak men hide behind busyness. Strong men find a way to integrate their responsibilities and still nurture their marriage, even if it's just 15 minutes of intentional conversation at the end of the day or planning one date night a month without distractions. It's not about the quantity of time, it's about the quality and the message behind it. The message is, I choose you, not just the kids, not just the job, you. So don't let the illusion of busyness rob you of intimacy. It's weakness disguised as responsibility, and it's going to kill your marriage if you let it. Before I move on to the next point, let me just ask, if you're liking what you're hearing so far, if you find it useful, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's an easy and free way to let me know to keep making this type of content. Plus, it helps the algorithm push it out so more men who desperately need to see things like this can see it and hopefully save their relationships. Let's move on to a second way, which is huge with a lot of men, being indecisive. Weakness often shows up as passivity, and indecisiveness is passivity dressed up as being easygoing. You know what I'm talking about. She asks, where do you want to go eat? And you say, I don't care, whatever you want. She asks, what should we do this weekend? And you say, it's up to you. Over and over again, you hand her the reins. Now, at first, it might seem like you're being flexible or even kind, but what you're really communicating is, I don't want to take responsibility. I don't want to lead. Now, hear me clearly. Leadership in marriage doesn't mean control. It does not mean that you dictate everything and she follows, but it does mean you step up and own decisions. You show initiative. You carry part of the mental load instead of dumping it on her. When you're indecisive, you create hidden resentment because she feels like she has to drive the relationship on her own. And no woman wants to feel like she's married to another child she has to manage. Indecisiveness is weakness because it's rooted in fear of making the wrong choice, fear of disappointing her, fear of conflict. Strong men make choices, even if they're imperfect, and then they adapt. Weak men wait for someone else to choose so they can avoid responsibility. And here's the kicker: your wife doesn't even care if every decision you make is perfect. What she wants is to feel your presence as a man who can carry weight with her. So start small, pick the restaurant, plan the weekend, take the lead on something she usually handles. The more you practice decisiveness, the more natural it becomes, and the respect she feels for you will grow because you're showing up with strength instead of hiding behind passivity. The third way men show weakness is by chasing sex instead of building connection. This is one of the most common ways men show weakness in marriage, and it's one of the quickest ways to kill intimacy. When you beg, nag, or pout about sex, you're not being strong. You're being needy. And women don't respond to neediness with desire. They respond to strength, to presence, to connection. Here's the mistake. A lot of men treat sex like a scoreboard. I did the dishes. I helped with the kids. Now you owe me. Or they act like teenagers, sulking when they don't get laid, giving the cold shoulder, or constantly bringing it up until she feels pressured. That's not masculine. That's weakness. It communicates that your sense of self-worth is tied to whether or not she gives you her body. Strong men flip the script. They focus on building connection first. They create emotional safety. They flirt. They touch playfully without expectation. They invest in conversations that go deeper than logistics. They remember that desire is something you cultivate, not demand. When sex becomes about ego validation, she pulls away. When it becomes about shared closeness, she leans in. So if you find yourself chasing, begging, or keeping score, recognize that for what it is. It's weakness. Build the connection and the sex will follow. The fourth way to portray weakness in your own marriage is ignoring your own growth. Marriage is not a place where you get to stop evolving. The second you start coasting, you start losing respect, and it doesn't matter how long you've been together. Stagnation is unattractive. When you stop learning, stop working on yourself, stop taking care of your body or your mind, what you're saying to your wife is, this is as good as it gets. And that is a recipe for disconnection. Think about when you first got together. You were probably more curious, more ambitious, more alive. She was drawn to that energy. But if you've let yourself plateau, if you've settled into complacency, she's going to notice. Even if she doesn't say it outright, she feels it. And over time, her attraction to you is going to fade. Weak men think marriage is the finish line. They win the girl and then they stop running the race. Strong men know marriage is the starting line of a much deeper journey. They keep working on themselves physically, mentally, spiritually. They stay inspired so they can continue to inspire their wives. This doesn't mean you have to climb mountains or start companies. That's not what this is. It means you stay engaged with life. You read, you exercise, you set goals, you pursue hobbies. You model growth not just for her, but for your kids if you have them. A stagnant man is a weak man. A growing man is magnetic. Now, number 5 is hiding feelings behind anger or numbness. A lot of men confuse shutting down with being strong. They think not showing emotion makes them tough, or they default to anger as the only emotion they allow themselves to feel. Both are weakness in disguise. Anger without vulnerability is just fear with armor. Numbness is just avoidance dressed up as composure. Here's the truth. Your wife doesn't want you to be a robot. She doesn't want you to explode either. She wants to know you. She wants to feel connected to your inner world. When you hide behind anger or numbness, you cut off that connection. She's left guessing what you feel, or worse, feeling completely alone, even though she's lying next to you in bed. Strength, it's not about suppressing emotions. It's about owning them without being ruled by them. It's about saying, I feel hurt instead of slamming doors. It's about admitting fear without letting it paralyze you. It's about being present with your emotions and choosing how to respond rather than letting them control you. When you repress or lash out, you're showing weakness because you're letting fear drive the car. When you own your emotions calmly and directly, you show strength. And that's what builds trust and intimacy. Now, let's move on to the last one, which is over apologizing. Apologizing is important, but over apologizing is weakness. When you say sorry for every little thing, or when you apologize over and over for the same mistake without changing your behavior, you teach your wife that your words mean nothing. You strip them of value. So here's where men go wrong. They think endless apologies will fix the problem or smooth things over. They think if they just say sorry enough times, she'll forgive and forget. But in reality, it has the opposite effect. It makes you look spineless, like you're trying to buy her approval instead of standing in your own integrity. A strong man apologizes once very clearly and then follows it up with changed behavior. He doesn't apologize for existing, for having needs, or for having opinions. He takes responsibility where it's due and then he moves forward. Over apologizing is weakness because it comes from a place of fear, a fear of rejection, a fear of conflict, a fear of standing in your own power. And fear driven behavior never earns respect. Respect comes from accountability paired with action. So the next time you catch yourself saying sorry for something that you don't even need to be sorry for, stop, hold your ground, own your presence. That's what strength looks like. Like I said earlier, I'm not selling anything in this video, but if you do want to work with me, I have a private and exclusive men's coaching program where I dive into your problems with you directly, one-on-one. If you're interested, the information is in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.